way down. I don't even see them. Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. So if we could let's start this meeting of the South Florida Regional Planning Council meeting on Monday, May 19th, 2025. If we all could please stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance. Miss Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Kaplan? Here. Cates? Corradino? Fur?
Here.
Garcia? Geller? Gilbert? Goldberg? Portland? Here. Kaufman? McGee? Rodriguez? Here. Udine? Davila? Wynn?
Here.
Villaboy? Lincoln?
Here.
Madam Chair, if I may offer quickly,
Yes.
you have an executive committee that could be formed this morning if you would designate those members of the council who are not on the executive committee but would be able to serve in that capacity this morning so that you can begin the process of allowing the public to be actively involved in the meeting. That would be those who are not on the executive committee could be by acclamation appointed by you to serve in that role.
I think we should make Dad on there, because Dad's here in person.
He's physically close enough. That's a
Yeah,
good
we
deal.
never, in person.
Without
Love
objection,
that.
Madam Chair, if you can do that, that would get you in the right direction legally to proceed.
Do I need my magic wand, or can I just deem
You
them to be?
can, absent objection, you can deem it to occur.
Okay, I deem that every member here right now is on the executive board, so
Thank
that
you.
we have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you all for being here in person. And with that, we can go right to well, first let me start by saying welcome everybody, and thank you to the Miami-Dade TPO Director Eileen Bouclé and staff members for hosting us today. Raise your hand if you are from the TPO. They're outside in the hallway. Wave. Well, thank you all so much for letting us use your absolutely beautiful facility. It's quite a remarkable place, and the views are absolutely amazing. Living in the Florida Keys, we have nothing over 3 feet high, and or 3 stories, and this will make me dizzy. So let's get right to our action items, as we have some marvelous speakers this morning. And so let's start with our action items. I do believe the first one on here is for us to approve the minutes from our last meeting.
I'll move it.
Second.
We have a motion by Kaplan and a second by Horland. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. All right, motion carries. Next thing we're going to have is our financial report from Ms.
One more.
Oh, we have another section of minutes we need to approve, and that would be April's executive committee meeting.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. All right, y'all, you can make fun of my accent. Get it out.
Remember, she's the incoming fact.
All righty, and with that, we will have our financial report from Mr. Leo Brazlowski-Solti, our Director of Finance and IT. There you are, way down at the very end of the hall.
Yeah, and I'm short, it doesn't help, I know. Good morning, everyone. So if we go to page 1 of our financial report, we can see our balance sheet. Sorry, this is too high, right? Volume?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so the general fund decreased its assets in $66,361, as well as liabilities and fund balance. Federal, state, and local funds decreased their assets in $38,199. Same thing as liabilities and fund balance. Revolving loan funds increased its assets in $6,529, as well as liabilities and fund balance. The Prosperity Institute increased its assets in $92. That's due to interest to the cash account, and as well as liabilities and fund balance. On page 2, we have the detail for revenues and expenses. We are at 81% of collections of the annual budget, and we're at 60% of expenses at a 58.33% of the fiscal year lapsed. If you have any questions.
Does anybody have any questions for Leo? Are there any hands raised in Zoom, Kathy? Nope, okay. All righty then. I do not believe this needs a motion to be approved, or does it?
It would be a motion.
It would be,
Yes,
all
ma'am.
righty.
Thank you.
So moved.
A motion by Commissioner Furr. Do we have a?
Second.
Second, okay, by Kaplan. So any opposition? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All righty, motion carries. We approve the financial report.
Thank you very much.
Next up, Sam, we're gonna move to our consent items for our comprehensive plan amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the council. On the agenda are the proposed items. They are public hearings for each in the context of their presentation. If anyone from the public has come out today to either speak for or against any one of the proposals, you may do so through the chair. First up is the Miami-Dade County 25-02 ESR. Next up is Monroe County 25-02 ACSC. Next up is Monroe County 25-03 ACSC. City of Hollywood 25-01 ESR. The City of Hollywood number 25-02 ESR. Next up is the City of Miramar 25-01 ER. And last but not least, the City of North Lauderdale 25-01 ER. And for those, again, for the members of the public who are here, have a right to be heard for or against the application. And to be clear for the record, Monroe County is on the item this morning. The chair is from Monroe County, but she's not precluded by law to vote for or against the item. However, the commission might have voted in Monroe County. She has a different and independent right to make that decision here, if she so chooses. If not, that's her choice to make. And she cannot recuse herself or abstain either from the standpoint of the statute. So, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for that. Do we have anyone that wishes to speak on this item? Do I need to open this up now as a public hearing?
Yes,
And
please.
So I'm opening this up as a public hearing, and if there's anyone in the audience or on Zoom that wishes to discuss one of these items, please let us know now. Do we have anyone on Zoom? Guessing no. Okay, with that, I'm gonna close the public hearing.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. So next up, we will do our adopted.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The adopted are as follows: Miami-Dade County number 24-01 ESR, Miami-Dade County 24-02 ESR, Miami-Dade County 25-01 ESR, Monroe County 25-01 ACSC. The next up is Isla Mirada, the Village of Isles, 24-04 ACSC, the City of Miami Beach 24-01 ESR, the City of Miami Beach number 25-01 ESR, and lastly, the City of Sweetwater 24-01 ESR, all for the record public hearings. For those who came out today to speak for or against the adopteds, they have the legal right to do so this morning through the chair. Good morning, Commissioner. Senator.
Thank you, Sam. Is there anybody that wishes to speak on any of these agenda items? Hearing none. With that, I'll open it up for a public hearing. Do we have anyone signed up to speak on any of these items? No? Anyone in the audience wishing to speak on any of these items? Hearing none, I will close the public hearing, and I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
A motion from Commissioner Furr. Well, I'm going to take Commissioner Rodriguez for that one. And welcome to the meeting, Commissioner Geller.
Humbug.
I'm glad you found a parking spot.
10 minutes to register to park your car here.
That's awful. So we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. And with that, we will move on to our South Florida Regional Planning Council revolving loan fund plan for 2025 through 2030, and that would be Jeff Tart, our senior loan officer. Hello and good morning, Mr. Tart. Tell us some good news. I wondered, can you speak into the microphone, or is your microphone turned on?
Better? Yes.
Yes.
Good morning, council members. In regards to our compliance with the EDA for our CARES Act revolving loan fund, we are required to renew a 5-year RLF plan for the EDA, which outlines all our terms and conditions of our revolving loan fund program. In your packages today, because the 5-year plan is quite lengthy and bulky, we included just a few pages of the summary in your packages today, but the full RLF plan is online for anyone to review. Council staff today is requesting the adoption of Resolution 2502, which approves the RLF plan final submittal to the EDA, and the plan has already been reviewed and approved by the EDA. Today's ratification and approval will allow us to move forward with the next 5 years with this plan. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your report. Do we have any questions? Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Tart? Do we have anyone on Zoom with their virtual hand raised for questions? No. Okay. So I'll bring it back in and say thank you very much.
Motion to approve.
Madam Chair, the resolution needs to be read, if you will.
Okay.
For the record, that's item number 3E, and without objection from the chair or members of the council, resolution number 25-02 as proposed is a resolution of the South Florida Regional Planning Council representing the local governments of Monroe County, Miami-Dade County, and Broward counties, adopting the updated Economic Development Administration revolving loan fund 5-year plan for 2025 through 2030, as discussed by Mr. Tart, dated May 19, 2025, and providing for an effective date. Need a motion to approve, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion from Commissioner Furr. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Kaplan. Do we have any opposition? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries to pass the resolution.
Are those all of our action items?
Yes, sir, they are.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to move to program reports and activities, because I think we have our first speakers at 11, so we still have enough time to do some more work here. So let's go ahead. We should have kept Mr. Tart up there if you want to give a brief summary of what's going on with our revolving loan funds. And while you're there afterwards, a brief one on the CARES Act.
Your mic.
Good morning again. As Senior Loan Officer and Manager of the Revolving Loan Funds, this is a brief update on our Revolving Loan Fund programs for the month of May. The loan administration is in the process of closing a new $500,000 loan to Renaissance Riviera Beach that provides affordable housing to housing services to families located in Riviera Beach in Palm Beach County. The project's being developed by the community partners of South Florida, along with financing commitments from the SFRPC and the Florida Housing Finance Corporation. As you know, affordable housing has been very challenging in our region, and we've been fortunate enough to be able to help this crisis through our programming. This project quickly will be 5 new single-family homes to first-time minority home buyers, and it's part of the Riviera Beach pilot program. That's a collaboration with Riviera Beach CRA to develop 15 homes in 3 years. I'll keep you updated on the commencement of that. The traditional RLF is reviewing and underwriting a new $500,000 loan to Paramount Broadcasting Communications. That's an existing minority-owned business that just purchased a commercial studio in Sunrise for expansion of that media firm serving the Haitian community in South Florida. We're excited to be part of that. And also, we're reviewing a new loan of $250,000 to another existing client, White Glove Linen, another minority-owned business, seeking to expand their operations with an expansion of their commercial laundry to meet the growing demands of local hotels in our area here. To date, the CARES Act, RLF administration has approved 36 loans totaling $7.86 million. We created over 351 jobs. We have approximately $490,000 to lend to new borrowers. In regards to the traditional RLF program, we provided $5.66 million to 29 businesses, and we have approximately $700,000 to lend. But today I'm very excited to announce and share with all council members here that the EPA just on Friday announced the SFRPC's Brownfields Cleanup Revolving Loan Fund program, that's our program, was awarded a new $2 million supplemental RLF funding to assist with the remediation and cleanup of the Hollywood Ash incinerator in Broward County. And additionally, we were awarded a new $1.2 million assessment grant to the SFRPC to assist the City of Miami, the Alapata Collaborative, and South Florida Land Trust for assessment assistance. I will also provided in your packets today our existing Miami-Dade project updates and your board packages as it relates to the assessment and cleanup of the Miami Health District we're working on and Claude Pepper Park. In regards to the Miami Health District, just quickly, we committed already $1.75 million in EPA funding to help clean up that property located on the Miami River and Northwest 27th Avenue that was contaminated from a former exterminating company. And that will be converted into affordable housing for to meet the needs of the Miami health professionals in the area. And in regards to Claude Pepper Park, we're committing up to $3.5 million in EPA funding to assess and remediate the property located at 1255 Northwest 145th Street into much-needed affordable housing as well. And I just also wanted to mention quickly our affordable housing initiative is going quite well. We're looking at a new project in Miramar to provide 12 units of residential townhomes for first-time minority home buyers as well. So that's all in your packages, and if you have any questions, kindly ask or email me.
Great report. I do believe that Commissioner Furr has a question.
Not a question, just a comment. And I just want to thank you for getting the Superfund site finally funded.
No, thank you.
We've been waiting for that for 30 years. That's how long when I was a Hollywood City Commissioner, we were applying for that to try to get that done, to try to get it cleaned up.
Thank you.
And to hear that it's finally funded is amazing. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner.
I know that there's already plans there for housing afterwards, and a large amount of housing. So it's a big deal.
Thank you.
So thank you for that. And I think that was the only one. Now, what was the last thing? You mentioned, what was the last thing you mentioned?
Miramar?
No, there was something else. I'll remember. Anyway, go ahead. Thank you, though.
Thank you, Councilman Furr. Councilman Geller, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jeff, two questions. First, you mentioned that we were getting funding for assessment. What does that mean?
Assessment is when property owners believe that the property they already own is contaminated. It could be through petroleum, it could be through any chemicals that they're unable to develop either housing or commercial properties on. And the testing for the assessment, phase 1s, phase 2s, to indicate what problems there are with the properties, that all falls under the assessment. It's quite expensive, so owners usually try to apply for grant funding from the EPA. It's very difficult because we compete nationwide throughout the whole country, and I believe we were only one of two recipients of awards in the state of Florida, and we got 2 awards, so I'm proud of that.
Congratulations on that. other question that I have, and Madam Chair and Isabel, I'd asked about this previously. I don't know if we've ever seen these numbers, but on a lot of programs, we end up getting dollars. I think you said we would get 1.2 million on one of
the
these.
assessment.
And the question that I've raised previously is, if we are getting in, and it may not apply to this one, but if we get in $1.5 million on a certain program, and we end up dispersing to vendors $1.5 million, what ends up happening is we would put staff time and our expenses, and we end up not actually making anything, but actually costing the SFRPC money. And Isabel, I think you'll recall, I had asked at one time for us to try and look at these numbers, because if we are, and again, may not apply to these particular ones, but if there's a program that is, we get a funding for $1.5 million for, and we end up dispersing $1,350,000, because we keep 10% to cover our overhead and expenses, and our actual overhead and expenses are $50,000. So we've got a little cushion there that we can help pay our general cost for the SFRPC, and we're helping the community. Those are good. But if we're getting in $1.5 million and ending up spending more than that, when you include our staff time, enough of these successes and we'll be out of business. So,
Right.
Jeff, can you answer on these in specific, and I guess Isabel, I have asked, I know we were going to do some study on that, so.
So before Mr. Tart, I think our director, Isabella Cosio-Corbello, would like to address us first.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator Geller. We've begun that analysis. We started last month. We've had a preliminary conversation with Commissioner Udine and are digging a little deeper to get some better numbers. But we did hear you, and the analysis has begun, is well underway.
Okay, well,
We'll be
that's,
reporting back soon.
that's the good big picture. Jeff, do you know, on these specific ones, do you
Yes.
have any ideas on
I
numbers?
do. I'm very conscious of that, and I can tell all the council members, when we do review these projects initially, we do always include a fee for the SFRPC to oversee and manage these programs, which we do. So they are part of the budget, which goes into that $1.2 million. So we do charge for our time and our expenses, and get reimbursed for that. And we've been doing that for all our RLF programs, just so you know.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Madam Chair, if I may,
Yes, sir.
to Senator Geller's question too, we are analyzing that with Isabel. We're working on the final numbers, but we want to remind you also that the RLF programs are already running, and the marginal cost for every one of those programs is barely minimum compared to what the outcome of the program is.
Great.
And now we have Commissioner Rodriguez. The floor is yours.
I just had a question as to how we are promoting or marketing this material, especially the flyer that we have on here regarding the revolving loan program. What channels has this been sent to, and how do businesses find out about these opportunities?
Right, good question. In addition to working with council members to help promote it to their constituents, we have marketing partners that we've been reaching out to for years that we continue to. We work with all the counties, we work with local cities and economic development professionals in those municipalities. We reach out to regularly, and my staff every week does outreach to prospective businesses, but we welcome any sort of assistance or referrals to us as well. And all the information is available on our website as well.
Thank you for that. I know our planning director in Monroe County is very aware of the program, and we utilize it quite frequently too. So, great question, great answer. it was just brought to my attention that on Zoom, we have a few guests and dignitaries, so I would like to welcome the marvelous Mayor of Monroe County, Jim Scholl, and retired yet still working diligently to make our community wonderful, Jim Murley. And we have South Florida Water Management District Armando Villaboy with us on Zoom, so thank you and welcome to our meeting. And we still have a few minutes before our 11 o'clock presentations. So I'm going to turn the floor over to our director, Isabel, if you would like to give an update on our regional conference and any council news.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I draw your attention, council members, to item 4C, labeled SFRPC Regional Conference, and I'm going to look to Senator Geller to assist with this. So as you know, once a year we have a joint conference with the Treasure Coast Council, and then we have our own regional conference. So we are planning right now our regional conference for September 11th, looking for a place to be determined. But we're also including Palm Beach County in this conference, working with the Treasure Coast, because the topic of the conference is the business case for transit-oriented development and affordable housing in South Florida. So we will be building on the work of many partners, many of them who are your staff, and I just want to mention this conference really flows out of the work spearheaded by former Chair Geller, immediate past Chair Geller, and the work of council staff in related transportation and housing areas. So would you like to say anything? I have an item here.
Okay,
Would
thank
like
you.
to look at it?
Randy has done an immense amount of work on this, along with other staff. I know is Geralda here?
Yes.
Okay. Right. Hey, Geralda, and we've just added somebody else working on that. Another staff member has just recently come on.
Christina.
Christina, yeah, in the back. Hi, Christina. But we all know our problem in South Florida. We have too many people moving here and not enough land for them to build on. That's, throughout all three of our counties, candidly. And the only direction left to build is vertically. And the best place to do that, the most economical place, is transit-oriented development. And we keep hearing from all of our business leaders how we need more affordable housing, and key to that is TOD. I mean, you have this problem in Monroe County, which is just, many of your workforce has to drive in from, Florida City, and, we can't have in Dade and Broward everybody driving in or taking rail and eventually perhaps from Pahokee. We're going to need more housing, and TOD seems to be the best way to get it.
So thank you, Madam Chair. So I would just, again, we have a series of panels that we're planning, and we will be calling you. So just go ahead, please take a look. If you have ideas, you will be getting updates soon as we continue to work with former Chair Geller and Chair Lincoln, and then we'll be reaching out to you for your advice and input so we can refine the panels, and I will be reaching out to many of you to have you serve on the panels or as moderators. So we're very excited about it. It's going to be great, and that's my update.
Well, thank you for that, and it is now 11 o'clock, and we will begin our presentations. I want to appreciate that we're staying on a time schedule this morning. So we are going to be speaking this morning about the joys and wonders of living in the hot, sunny South Florida. And as we know, summer in Florida has yet officially began, but it is definitely already getting warm out there. The temperatures are only going to get warmer. A recent forecast by the Old Farmer's Almanac for summer of 2025 says that this summer is going to be a scorcher of a summer. And that is also according to an article by the Palm Beach Post. So today's first two presentations are going to highlight the work of Miami-Dade County and Broward County to get ahead of what may be a summer of extreme heat and severe weather. Then we're also going to hear about the Miami-Dade TPO's long-range transportation plan, which is aimed at improving regional connectivity and mobility. So first up on our agenda will be the marvelous Jane Gilbert. She is the Chief Heat Officer and Miami-Dade County Director of Urban and Community Forestry. She is going to discuss with us the health and economic impacts of extreme heat. And as I said, Jane is the Chief Heat Officer and Miami-Dade County Director of Urban and Community Forestry. She works across departments and partners to address the increasing risks to human health, lives, and livelihoods associated with extreme heat. Jane, we're really looking forward to your presentation this morning, and with that, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and good morning, council members.
think
Well,
we
I'm closer to you guys
Yeah.
here, if that's
It's
okay.
like a mile away down
I
there.
can, you'll call up our presentation, you can start doing that. So, 4 years ago, our mayor, Daniela Levine Cava, appointed me to this unique job title role, because, our region has been working on climate impacts for quite some time. I was the first chief resilience officer for the city of Miami and had been part of this community's work to address sea level rise and increasing flood risk, but extreme heat had not been part of that work. And in 2020, a group of community-based organizations in Miami-Dade County did a series of focus groups and surveys in our low mod income communities throughout the county to try to tease out what people's top concerns were related to climate change. And it wasn't sea level rise. And it wasn't even hurricane risk, even though Hurricane Irma hit those communities pretty hard in 2017. It was extreme heat, because that's what people were living day in and day out, whether they couldn't afford their utility bills anymore, or their AC breaks down in July and they get it fixed for weeks, and that has serious health impact. They're one of our over 300,000 workers that are exposed to heat every day, or their abuela is walking and waiting at a bus stop too long and ends up in the emergency room, or their kids can't play outside in summer camp anymore. That's what their experience was, and the mayor heard that, and that's really, she wanted to put extra energy into looking at this new increasing stress facing our community. And so she charged me with putting together a diverse task force. Are you able to call up the slide?
It's
now
up.
it's up. Okay,
It's up.
great. Next slide. Next slide.
There we go.
Oh, no, it's too far ahead. Okay. So you may all know this by now, but heat is the #1 weather-related killer in the world, in the United States, and here in South Florida. And heat-related illnesses and deaths are grossly undercounted. The official CDC count of an average number of deaths in a year is a little over 700. Here in Miami-Dade County, it's about 10. But if you look at the increase in deaths during extreme heat times, those numbers are much higher. Here in Miami-Dade County, we looked at the average increase in deaths over 5 years, and it was 600 a year. Nationally, some studies have been done, and it's as much as 12,000 deaths a year due to extreme heat. And that's because heat exposure not only causes heat exhaustion and heat stroke, but it can trigger a heart attack. It can trigger complications with diabetes or respiratory illnesses. Construction accidents go way up during times of extreme heat. So we know that Preterm births can be caused by extreme heat exposure, pediatric asthma being triggered. So there are a lot of health impacts that we're not counting that are where extreme heat is exacerbating them. Next slide. And it doesn't hit us all equally. Particularly here in South Florida, unlike an area like the Northwest where they'll have an episodic heat wave and many people don't have access to air conditioning, most of us do have access to air conditioning and live, work, and drive around in AC environments. But it's those who can't afford that or can't access that either at work or at home that are most at risk, and those with pre-existing heart, lung conditions, people with spinal cord injuries can't regulate heat, people on certain medications are more sensitive to heat. Diuretics make you more sensitive to heat. Many medications for mental health purposes, SSRIs, can make you more sensitive to heat. So we need to make sure that as we do outreach, we're messaging those different communities. Next slide. We've had an average of a increase in temperature of about 2.2 degrees Fahrenheit since the 70s. Next slide. And going forward, we are going to see dramatic increases in our heat index. We have not only chronic high temperatures, but we have chronic high humidity here in South Florida, and that looking at our heat index or feels like temperature is much a better indication of how well we can regulate heat. We prior to these last two summers, we had historically an average of about 7 days in a year with heat index at or above 105. We're looking at close to 3 months a year by mid-century, but next slide. You can't see the numbers on this, but 23, 24, we had a heat index at or above 105 in 23 at 42 days, and in last summer, 60 days. So if you're saying this summer is going to be a scorcher, I hope it's not like more of a scorcher than we've had the last two summers, because we had a doubling of heat-related, just heat exhaustion, heat stroke admissions to our emergency department last year in Miami-Dade County. Next slide. And we all need to be thinking about not just that chronic exposure, but if we had a widespread and extended power outage in any of our communities during a high heat time, that puts many more people at risk to heat exposure. So we need to think about energy redundancy and energy resilience even more now. Next slide. And it's getting hotter in our cities globally, not just because of increased greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, but how we develop as cities. More asphalt, less green space, less trees, more waste heat from our buildings and vehicles. All of that can make our cities up to 9 degrees hotter in our urban areas than others, and certain neighborhoods. We did a study with FIU and University of Miami to put sensors out in our communities and found that there are certain neighborhoods that are averaging 11 degrees hotter than our weather station at Miami International Airport. And that's like not exactly out in the woods. So so any day can be a very extreme, even if we're not putting it out there. Next slide. And it's not distributed equally. Again, tree canopy being a very good indicator of where you have your urban heat islands or not. The map of Miami-Dade County with the blue areas are our census tracts, with the white being the lowest median income of our census tracts, and with the green blocks, the white are areas with less than 10% tree canopy. So there's a lot of alignment in terms of low-income areas also living in areas with low tree canopy. And this is also a common pattern across all our areas. Next slide. So we did, one of the things we wanted to do was just be informed about who and where people were at risk in Miami-Dade County. So we commissioned a study looking at the emergency department visits and hospitalizations by zip code in the county and what the top correlating factors were. And the top correlating factors are a high percentage of poverty rates, high land surface temperatures, in other words, our urban heat islands, high number of outdoor workers, and families with children. Next slide. So we mapped that, and the darker red areas, we're not talking about just, 25 or 30% increase. Actually, the darker red areas were experiencing heat-related emergency department visits at rates 4 times those of the yellow and light orange areas. So a big disparity in how heat is experienced in our community. Next slide. So we put together a task force. I co-chaired it with an internal medicine doctor from Florida International University, Dr. Cheryl Holder. We had members from the National Weather Service, the State Health Department, municipal partners, our community-based organizations, as well as people with lived experience in our communities, and did a series of public workshops, really trying to tease out what we're already doing, what national and international best practices are to address extreme heat, and then what we could do collectively. Not county government is going to solve all these problems. No, what could we do collectively to address these health and economic issues? Next slide. So all of these actors and more are were a part of our planning, but are also part of the implementation of our plan. We have our municipal partners, the health department, health community, frankly, and university partners, community-based partners, all involved in the implementation of the plan. Next slide. So the plan is divided up into 3 main goal areas: to inform and prepare people. How can we help people stay cool at home affordably and make sure we have the energy redundancy to protect ourselves in the event of a widespread power outage, and then finally cooling our neighborhoods. Next slide. So in informing prepare people, the mayor wanted us to prepare people on the level that we have all been very experienced at doing to prepare people for hurricane risk. So we declared May 1st through October 31st as an official heat season, sending the message that we don't need to wait for a heat advisory or heat warning. Actually, any day during this time, we can be at risk if we don't take proper precautions to protect ourselves. The next is to do a series of, have been doing a series of heat safety trainings with our CERT volunteers, our citizen emergency response teams, additional community-based leaders, with summer camp providers, with our homeless outreach teams, and our cooling site staff. Those are updated each year, and we provided some with employers as well, and a series of researchers. We worked with the National Weather Service on lowering our heat advisory and warning thresholds. We first piloted it here in Miami-Dade County. The thresholds have been advisory at a heat index of 108 and a warning at a heat index of 113, which is just very rare, extremely rare here. So we piloted lowering it to that 105 for a heat advisory and 110. Broward County joined us in last summer, and I know Palm Beach County has explored joining that as well. We've found it very positive in terms of just that many more opportunities to send the message out about heat risk to our communities. These are highly preventable illnesses and deaths, and that's really one of the things that I want to drive home here is that the good news is that we really can do something about all of this, and we're having good results so far. We also expanded our cooling site network and now have 64 sites across the county. partnering now, not just county library and park sites, but City of Miami park sites and our government center and a nonprofit, the Camillus Health. We've done a series of trainings, as I mentioned before, for employers, rolled out a program for our own workers at the county to protect outdoor workers, and just launched a mini grant program for small employers to access hydration and shade equipment. We're going to be announcing those grantees on May 30th, so excited about that. We have a great partnership with our university partners to do ongoing research and meet monthly with the research community to make sure that we are advancing research that will really inform interventions here locally. Next slide. In terms of helping people stay cool at home affordably, we were able to leverage Recovery Act dollars in the last few years to install 1,700 efficient AC units in our public housing, to actually triple our weatherization number of homes that we were able to weatherize last year. In the last couple years, create a program for naturally occurring affordable housing retrofits, and done some education outreach for renters on no and low cost ways to stay cool at home affordably, and working with our sustainable buildings program to require that any new affordable housing has cool roofs, has efficient AC systems, so that we can make sure those are affordable going forward. We also created a Resilience Hub strategy, which a Resilience Hub is like a cooling site enhanced that can be used for any disaster, and has backup power and ability for people to not only stay cool, but recharge phones and keep their medicine cool, et cetera. So we're in the early stages of rolling that out. Next slide. In terms of cooling neighborhoods, we doubled our annual tree planting in those low canopy areas, focusing on those low canopy areas. We were able to get a $10 million U.S. Forest Service grant, which we're now implementing in those areas as well. We launched an urban forestry plan just last month. That's really a way to get to our 30% goal, focusing on those low canopy areas, and created partnerships with our school district and the faith-based community. The school district is the second largest landowner after the county in our county, and the faith-based community actually collectively owns more land with tree planting potential in the areas where we need trees the most than the county. So we've been doing some great tree plantings and outreach, and they're trusted members of the community. Launched a tree leaders program, leaders from those communities that have low canopy. Many of those people, our municipal partners and county partners, have reported how challenging it sometimes can be to site and plant trees in these areas. And so having community leaders trained that are respected members of the community. We now have 18 that are going through this training, and we're part of our Adopt a Tree giveaway just yesterday, and will be part of these faith-based and school-based outreach efforts going forward. And we will be proposing some updates to our landscape and tree protection code. The private sector has the most land to make sure we can enhance our tree canopy. Our parks and transit have been great partners in terms of making sure more drinking fountains, hydration stations are available outdoors throughout. That's a critical. More shade structures are available. We are now going to make sure that all the bus stops under the county's care have shelters, and even other water features like splash pads and nature-based playgrounds, et cetera. So with that, thank you. You can go to the next slide. I welcome questions, but I'm going to have to run because I gotta renew my driver's license.
Oh, boy. Our condolences.
Well, we greatly appreciate you being here this morning to discuss this extremely important topic. I know I was just speaking with one of our nurse practitioners in the Florida Keys, and she said on any given day, there's a high percentage of our residents in the Florida Keys that are dehydrated, and they're walking around and they don't even know it.
Yeah.
And then if they have anything happen, it just spirals down. So I'm looking around at the room at all the people who are not drinking any water right now and thinking y'all are probably dehydrated. So greatly appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
I know that we have Senator Geller would like to address the audience, so the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Gilbert, I've heard you before. I think you're excellent, and I appreciate everything you do. Concern that I have is I think that you've been very effective, and I'm concerned about what will be happening in the future. I know last year the legislature blocked legislation that would have sounded pretty reasonable, say, you need to make sure your workers are hydrated or have the opportunity to have hydrate themselves, have breaks, have shade, things that, radical concepts like that when it got too hot. And it sounded, you were mentioning some of your grant programs that sounded like they were, a lot of that funding came from the COVID grants, which have now expired, and with the massive cutbacks that we see coming down from the federal government and potentially with the state, and that doesn't even include the possibility of their eliminating local government, not eliminating, just eliminating or funding, what future do you see? I mean, I kind of see a grim one because most people don't have the opportunity to listen to you or to Dr. Hirado and don't hear all of the issues and just think that these are horrible leftist, socialist, people who want to, be too green or something.
Yeah, no, it's a very important point and question. Our commission has gotten behind advocating it. We really should have heat protection at the federal level, but we've been advocating for the federal standard, for the state standard. It shouldn't be local governments putting these forward. It should be at a higher level, frankly. And there is a hearing on the OSHA proposed standard June 16th, but I don't see that.
They still have OSHA? They haven't
They
eliminated
still have
it
OSHA,
yet?
but I don't see that necessarily going forward. I've been advocating the business side of this because, frankly, providing hydration and rest breaks is how you maintain productivity and keep your workman's comp claims down and your other liabilities down. If you don't, yes, you should do the right thing and protect your workers. But even if that's not your top concern, it is good business to protect your workers. And it's pretty simple stuff, to your point, of providing hydration, providing rested cool breaks. We know this as athletes, that you have to take breaks in order to get back out there and perform. It's called HIIT training. That's the same thing as outdoor workers. So I have been, and now we're in conversations with insurers and workman's comp insurance to try to advocate in that way, because you're right, it's not going to happen with federal regulation. And we're trying to operationalize as much as possible. I have to run.
I was
I'm
going to
so
say,
sorry.
thank you so much for being here. I know the Commissioner for might wanted to
No,
have
no,
said
no,
something, but we
go.
don't want you to lose your driver's license.
We'll send you questions
Yes.
email.
Thank you so much for
Thank
being
you.
here. So next up on our agenda, we're going to have Dr. Jennifer Hirado, and she is going to be visiting us through the Zoom world. She is the Deputy Director and Chief Resilience Officer for Broward County, and we all know and love Jennifer very much. She's very active in so many different organizations, and we all get to listen to her, and she's so informative. And She is going to discuss with us this morning the preparing for extreme heat and flood, and are we resilient and are we ready? So with that, we will have Dr. Jennifer on.
I thought I was ready to share, but then I could tell I was muted, so let me
Uh-oh.
go back. Could you see my screen okay?
We can
A
hear
moment
you.
ago?
We hear you and we see you right now.
Okay, let's
And your
see. I
desk.
think.
And your bookshelves.
Okay, and
Yeah.
do you see my screen now, please?
Yes,
No?
we do.
You do, perfect, good, thank you. And thanks for the introduction, the opportunity. Jane did a great job, and she's such an incredible resource. So, this is just a little bit of filler, given that I think she's just done a great job setting things up. But I am able to speak a little bit about our efforts here in Broward County, and that have benefited a great deal from the work down in Miami-Dade. And so we've, taken what we can from that model and have worked here over the last, I'd say half year, or maybe even a year and a half, depending on the level of intensity of the different types of efforts, to piggyback and try and get to some of where Miami-Dade has been for a bit. So some more recent background for us is that as an organization, we've been working on a full resilience strategy. We do have a countywide resilience plan, but we've been working on a resilience strategy specific to the Broward County organization. And we have really called out heat in that. And then part of that strategy includes really ramping up a resilience readiness roadshow, and kind of thinking more strategically about all the critical partnerships that we have that we desperately need to be more effective in our sharing of information to help the whole of the community respond and prepare for the nature of these extreme events. And so this year, as we've been increasing that education and engagement, we're really focusing on what we all know to be the three seasons of South Florida. I guess we could count winter also, but for those who may not be familiar, we're really expressing the importance of being aware of our heat season along with our hurricane season and our wet season. So there's a lot of overlap. There's a lot of compounding of challenges and pressures because of that overlap, but also to the point that Jane made, the extreme events that we experience, whether it's heat or whether it's flood, certainly are not confined to these windows, but it is a circumstance where if you have more than one factor at a time, it really can exacerbate the vulnerabilities that we have in our community. So this is part of our framing this year on our outreach activities. As a little bit of highlight, I know that Jane did focus on heat. I'll just touch on flood as well, because of course Broward has had the experience in the last couple years of some very dramatic flood events, including our April 23 event, which occurred outside of the wet season, outside of the hurricane season, and delivered about 26 inches of rain in about 12 hours. So we know we get extreme rainfall. The graphic on the left shows our averages across the county, and then the hash marks on the bottoms of some of these graphs show some of the more extreme individual rainfall events. And so those are not countywide averages, but to say, the countywide average might be 87 inches for the year, but in one spot we received 26 inches, accounting for nearly a third of the total rainfall, or, in a single day event. So really underscoring the extreme weather altogether, but these acute events and what that can impose on the community in terms of losses and damages and disruptions. We also know that these events are increasing nationwide. It's demonstrated, and we took the full 32-year period of record, and 10 of the most severe rainfall events have occurred just in this last decade, 5 of them in the last about a year or so. So, extreme conditions that we don't have to wait, one in every 100 years, as some folks might think, but they can happen year after year. We've already covered the heat circumstance, but you can see the trend here as well. And just, it's quite obvious since 2018, we've seen a real ramping up in the total number of heat hours. And so it's not only what are those temperatures, but it's how long of a period are we going with these extreme heat? Is it days, day after day? We've been talking to the emergency response community about what does it mean to prepare for these events and service a community for prolonged periods of time, potentially several events in a year? And again, what if you're having to do that under extreme flood, and thinking about the water, energy and delivery, energy disruptions, delivery of resources, and all of these things when it's extreme heat, not only for the community that you're trying to service, but your own team, and how prepared are we as organizations to be able to operate and deploy under those conditions. Similar, exact same graphic on the upper right. I think it's really important to know that despite all of the aspirations to try and bracket warming to no more of an increase of 1.5 degrees Celsius over pre-industrial, we know we've already passed that. We are now wholly everywhere planning for 2 degrees Celsius by the end of the century at minimum. And there are clearly indications that we can go well beyond that to 3 and 4 degrees Celsius. And in fact, most of the risk management entities are planning for 4 degrees Celsius in their risk portfolios. So this really gives a sense about how extreme these conditions can be for our communities. The graphic on the bottom right shows the trend in Broward County. Again, since I'd say the 1980s, you can see a real acceleration in what's happening with warming. And then similar to Miami-Dade, we're able to map geographically the disparities in temperature across the landscape. And clearly we have a central corridor in Broward County where the temperatures are quite warm, and extreme hot spots where you have the darkest colors that are revealed. So we've been working on the issues of both flood and heat as part of our countywide resilience plan. We just completed a 2-year planning effort. The plan has been written. It's getting a website launched, but just very quickly, we did map areas across Broward County under compound flood conditions, so taking the various sea level rise scenarios, extreme rainfall, storm surge, etc., evaluating how our model compares with some of the more recent events. The panel on the far right is the most severe of all compound scenarios, and is pretty well matched what we experienced on April 12th, 23. So really in reinforcing, not only can you flood at conditions like that, we can, and we don't have to wait for 2070 to get here in order to experience conditions that look like that. Also, our consultant on the project, Hazen, provided an analysis of temperatures across our landscape. Jane noted, I think, a 10 or 11 degree difference in some areas of Miami-Dade. We found a 10 to 13 degree difference. It's consistent with nationwide trends as well, where you've got a lot of greenery, it's cooler, where you don't, it's warmer, and on average, that disparity, that temperature differential is 10 to 13 degrees. So we see that in our community too. That's going to be very critical as we think about water management practices, because green infrastructure is so important for water management, but it's also the best way to provide the co-benefits of cooling while we're addressing flooding. So that was important work for us to couple. Also similar to Miami-Dade, we've, on the graphic on our left, is a mapping of what we call Zone 1, or our critical areas for social vulnerability. This is a result of having mapped flood risk, heat exposure, and social vulnerabilities, and they pretty much fall across the zip codes that are highlighted here in the hash mark. Then intuitively you'd expect the graphic in the middle, which includes that call out on temperature, to align, because temperature was one of the factors we considered in mapping the panel on the left. But then the panel on the right is a summation of heat-related emergency department visits. This data was collected from the Department of Health database, and you can see how that darker blue shading, where these incidents are called in, how they also align with our areas of social vulnerability. So it's clear that there's a very strong overlay and correlation between where it's hot, what's happening with social exposures, vulnerabilities, and who is suffering the most in terms of heat-related illnesses. So it really does underscore the importance of green infrastructure, one, as part of our management strategies to help cool these areas, but then two, working more proactively in advance of these events to better deliver resources to help ensure protections. I'm not going to go into the details here, but I'm providing some examples of the flood mitigation and green infrastructure and other water management strategies that are embedded in our resilience plan. We've mapped across Broward County the proposed sites for these types of interventions, and the kind of sage-colored area in this graphic provides example of all the areas where we have the opportunities to install more in the way of green infrastructure as part of modified roadway projects and so forth to do cooling within residential areas, which is going to be important to breaking up that urban concrete. We're launching the website that has a lot of this information. We have online tools to help provide viewers of communities under existing and future flood conditions, as well as turning on the features for the proposed adaptation plan and being able to do a comparison of before and after scenarios on flood risk reduction in the communities based upon the strategies that we've recommended. So this is something that's being launched now and able to help support not only that conversation as what does risk look like, but work to build support for the importance of interventions which do deliver, and it's not just hypothetical. And I think it's really important to note that the model that we use is the Broward County model that we've been developing for 20 years with under Mike Shee software, but not as important as that is the fact that FEMA uses our model for flood mapping, as does the South Florida Water Management District for regional planning. So as we move forward, every investment that we make that we capture in our model will also be captured in future FEMA flood mapping and water management district analyses. So we will derive the benefits of our infrastructure investments as we're putting those projects into our core workhorse model. With regards to the coordination efforts, I just want to share again, we've had the benefit of extensive conversations with Jane, Miami-Dade, their emergency management team. We've been working with our medical examiner now since the beginning of the year on the issue of data to help support our knowledge of where the exposures are occurring. We acknowledge that it's a limited data set, it's inconsistent collection of information, there's inconsistent reporting, there's many entities that need to be much more strongly participating in that, and understanding that if we have that data, it best supports, again, early interventions. Where are we going to stage teams? What about the cooling centers? When funds come available again, how can we invest those funds to help communities so we're not just providing response to the incident, but proactively mitigating those exposures for the community. So we've been working with the medical examiner. We've spoken to the Emergency Medical Services Council, have a presentation with the Healthcare Practitioners Network this week. We've launched the Resilience Readiness Roadshow, Red Cross. We've spoken with them as well. Broward schools, others, municipalities have been part of these conversations. And in a couple of weeks, we're holding a launch where we hope to bring in 9 municipalities that all overlay with that core area of exposure into a pilot initiative to have much more in the way of robust marketing, communications, community engagement around heat and our cooling centers. So we piggybacked on Miami-Dade's effort with the National Weather Service. We too are formally participating now in that reduced threshold for heat warnings and advisories. We're working, we believe, rather aggressively with partners to help with the collection of temperature data as part of emergency responses so we can get a better picture of every single heat-related response, hospitalization, and unfortunately including fatalities. Use this information to help better communicate, expand our cooling center initiatives, and we've got a very aggressive social media campaign that we've been managing for a couple of years now, doing the same, and this outreach includes both the public as well as employers. So again, lots of appreciation to Miami-Dade and the collaboration that we've had in being able to take advantage of the work of the heat task force down there. Rather than duplicate that whole effort, we took what we could use, and we're very satisfied with the ongoing coordination and the support. So that concludes my presentation, and glad to take any questions if there's time. Thank you.
Dr. Jurado, thank you so much for that very informative and timely report for us. And I will open it up for questions. And I know that Commissioner Beam-Burr has a question for you. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer, as always. Great presentation. But you said one thing that I wanted to discuss. And she talked about where the model that the Broward County, I guess it would be the hydrologic model that informs FEMA as to where flood zones are. That's pretty important because, and I'm looking at Senator Geller on this, because if we actually change culvert sizes in different places, the model changes. And that means that the flood zone changes. Would that be correct, Jennifer?
Yes, it is correct. As we improve our water management strategies, that becomes part of the base model. So when FEMA picks up the model and they remodel, the benefits of the improvements will now be captured in the base model. So the flood risk reductions that we derive will be part of what is presumably going to come back to Broward County in terms of improved flood risk and reduced insurance rates, which has been part of our focus.
Yeah, it's a return on investment that I don't think we've understood. And it's one of those things as the county or any municipality who starts to actually put in larger culverts, larger stormwater management, then that gets put into the model, and suddenly our residents may actually be out of a flood zone and not have to pay for flood insurance. That's a big, I hadn't
thought of that.
I hadn't thought of that at all. And that's something when we're looking at, because part of our resilience plan is we're trying to figure out how to fund that, how to finance that, and how do you justify that. That's a major justification right there.
That is. It's a great point. Thank you. Thank you for that. Yes, Councilman.
Thank you. To respond, Mayor, the two issues. Number one, the culverts would help if we have a place for the water to go. Until we're able to resolve the major canal issue that you're so familiar with, and that Dr. Jurado has done more than any person alive to help resolve. But until we're able to fix that, having the larger culverts where there's no place for the water to go may not help, number one. Number two, I have thought of that. I have been aware of the issue because Dr. Jurado has brought this up at our water board issue. And when we've adopted the map, which came through the water board initially, which I chair, but the other issue that we have on that is, on the one hand, yes, it's, we know that we need to spend all of these billions of dollars and that there will be a return on them. And you've seen the budget numbers as well as I do. So, yeah, we do need to. I just don't know where the money comes from.
I know. And I think your point's well taken with regard to where the water goes. And I think while the CSNF study's taking place and they're doing the primary part of the.
The secondary
The
canals.
secondary one is where we probably need to be focusing in on.
Have you
Because
looked at
that's
the
where,
price on
if
those?
if that water's coming down, it's gotta have a place to go. And we have to be the ones that provide it. So simultaneously, while we're working with CSNF and they're figuring out the main part, our job and all those cities that are along that line, primarily the salinity control.
Right, Mayor, the other issue there is the C&SF study is dealing with salinity control barriers and pumps. They are not yet looking at dealing with either berms or seawalls or raising the banks of the canals. So when you pump water, if they don't raise the banks of the canals,
Right.
all we're going to be doing is flooding everything
Yeah,
downstream.
a lot to it.
All right, gentlemen, thank you for that.
Thanks,
little
Jennifer.
Cross debate going on there. It's definitely,
We can never talk to each
I
other.
know, I know.
Well-
This was a rare opportunity. I can actually throw that out at her.
Right.
I enjoyed it. So, Dr. Huerta, as always, Jennifer, thank you so much for your presentation. We really appreciate you and all the work you do in Broward County, and we all do share, and that's the great thing about this meeting and all the collaboration that you do with Monroe County and Miami-Dade, so thank you. And next up, this is a little awkward and odd that I'm gonna welcome, our
Never
next
has.
speaker, who is Eileen Bouclé, who happens to be the director of the Miami-Dade Transportation Planning Organization, and I'm welcoming you to our meeting that we're having in your living room. So, first of all, thank you so much for allowing us to be here this morning. We, really enjoy your facility and these views, so thank you for allowing us to be here, and we look forward to hearing from you and for everyone. Ms. Bouclé is the Executive Director for the Miami-Dade Transportation Planning Organization. She is a nationally recognized leader promoting innovative, collaborative, and solution-oriented approaches for the largest and most complex metropolitan region in the state of Florida. This includes working with the Miami-Dade TPO Governing Board. I'm sure that's always fun. And you received a unanimous adoption for the Strategic Miami Area Rapid Transit Program. So congratulations on that. Raise your hand if you took the TPO rail this morning to get to work. Awesome sauce. Way to go. So with that, I'm going to turn the floor over to you for you to give us an update on everything marvelous that you're doing for transit.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for that welcome, and it's truly a pleasure to host you, Madam Chair, and members of the board. Welcome to Miami-Dade County TPO Governing Board Chambers, Madam Executive Director. You are a very important partner for us. It is our pleasure to have you here, and we welcome you at any time. And it's my pleasure to also discuss transportation, not just Miami-Dade, but on behalf of the region, as the mayor and I sit at CEFTEC, and we just had our meeting Friday. He is the chair of that as well. And Miami-Dade TPO runs the regional MPO, CEFTEC, Palm Beach, Broward, and Miami-Dade. We rotate in the counties, so it's under the helm of TPO here in Miami-Dade for a 5-year period. So again, welcome. My name is Eileen Bouclé, Executive Director of Miami-Dade TPO. I do have one slide. I actually was able to narrow it down to one slide, but I believe we have handouts because it's very small to see. So we're going to be passing out handouts, but it's really a timeline on transportation because I feel like this board in particular across the region has examples of the different modalities. Every area has a different challenge, as Madam Executive Director and I discuss often, and everything has its own unique challenges and its own unique solution. So you have like a hodgepodge of different modalities across the board, and this is really the progression of transportation going all the way back to the 1980s with the establishment of Metro Rail and its progression since then. So the Miami-Dade TPO just adopted, well, really in November. For me, it was almost like yesterday. It was quite a process. It's a federal requirement, but it's a multi-year preparation to prepare a long-range transportation plan. It is a core federal requirement, and the time horizon that's established by the feds, they tell us, we don't get to pick it. It's not a nice-to-have category, it is a requirement. So we have our long-range plan adopted all the way through 2050. So this timeline projects all the way out to 2050, including all the new and emerging technologies that we as a region have been very focused on. Everything blue there, and then when you get your handout, you'll see it, are really new and emerging technologies that this region is preparing for. In one sense, this region, in different ways, from Palm Beach, Broward, and Miami-Dade, we collaboratively, we are over 6 million, as you know, Madam Chair, members of the board. We're over 6 million in population. We're in the top 10 most populous regions in the nation, and our population travels and traverses throughout the county on a daily basis. So we're really seamless. People don't know literally when they're in one county or another, or they may not realize it when they cross the county and they don't know which facility they're on, whether they're on Florida Department of Transportation District 4 managed state highway system or District 6 managed system, or whether it's a federal interstate or local state highway roadway or a toll, a turnpike authority or an expressway. So our job is to make sure that it's seamless, and if people notice this, then that's even it's even worse than just the congestion. So some of the issues that we're dealing with, I'd like to recognize that from District 6, a core partner, to all the TPOs in the state, our Florida Department of Transportation. I always say we have the best partnership here in Miami-Dade District 6 with TPO because of the complexities of our work program and the amount of funding and the modalities we have here. We always have very interesting, I think, teamwork going on. So in our long-range plan, in our priority 1, we have a good mix of highway, roadway, transit, and also micromobility, bicycle, pedestrian, and special needs, as well as trails, as well as housing. In the last 2 years, the federal government has allowed TPOs and MPOs to step into the housing equation. We are a federally funded, mandated agency across the state. Anywhere with a certain minimum population requires an MPO. So we are adhere to the federal regulations 100%, also the state and also the local, but we're primarily jurisdictional authority over the federal funds that come. So on a federal level, Congress allowed MPOs across the nation to step into the housing. Can I also get a copy if there's any extra ones as well? Always, thank you, so I can follow along with you. Congress allowed TPOs and MPOs to step into the housing dialogue nationally because of the crisis that we have for affordable housing. This region, the Southeast region, is not just an affordable housing crisis in many areas of our region. We're also a workforce housing crisis in many areas of our region. And this region, and I'm very proud of this, under the leadership of CEFTEC and in collaboration with my counterparts in Broward and Palm Beach in the MPOs, we were successfully able to enter federal language into the federal transportation bill that allows consideration for not just affordable but workforce housing, that if any project that we are funding or have listed in our federal documents promotes and advances and provides access and considers workforce in addition to affordable housing, we will get some sort of scoring in our ranking criteria process that allows us to be competitive on a national level when we pursue federal grants. So I'm very proud of that fact on a regional level. And now that you have the handout, I want to focus really on the blue text if I can, because that's the new and emerging technologies. I think for every consideration in transportation that we have, you can certainly find two groups. You can find the pros and the cons to it. All right, so what are the pros and cons of transit that exists today in Miami-Dade County, in Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach? Well, the con that you would hear frequently is there's not enough of it. And we've been talking about it for decades, and we've been in planning phases, and we've not been able to launch a lot of the transit priorities that we've requested on the con side. But on the pro side, it presents a reality that we are not a legacy system in this region, and we are open to new and emerging technologies and are at an advantage nationally to deploy and bring those industries here and test pilot these type of technologies. And I'll give you one example. We have what's called the Smart Demonstration Program that was launched in 2018 here in Miami-Dade, where we were able to launch different technologies, primarily focused on the first last mile. And the reason that I want to bring this up is because as a region, we have the sun and we have the beaches, and no matter what's happening economically across the nation, we are a bubble and we will always be a plus population area, even within the state. We will always be growing in our demand. So congestion is here and is a part of that reality of we are constantly attracting, and it fluctuates percentages, but overall, our congestion and people want to live here. So we have to look at how to address our network, not just from the mega projects, the major interchanges, and the major transit projects that we're working with Broward, Palm Beach, and Miami-Dade, but we need to look at the micromobility, and we need to look how people are moving within a 2 to 3 mile radius of where they live. So it's not just regional considerations, but it goes all the way down to local. And I feel like that's where this blue text comes into play, where we can deploy technologies to get people to and from where they need to go at a local neighborhood community level that helps us to remove a single occupant vehicle from our network. Because when you clog the beginning portion of your trip and the end portion of your trip with single occupant vehicles that don't have another mobility choice to go to the supermarket or to get to the transit station or to go to a park, you're just adding to the congestion. So part of the congestion insurance for this region is deploying some of these new and emerging technologies. And one area of focus for us is, that, of course, that 2 to 3 mile radius. We know that if we give you a dedicated, protected infrastructure for micromobility, i.e. also bicycle, i.e. also electric bike and or electric micromobility, if it's safe, dedicated, protected infrastructure network that is available within a 2 to 3 mile region, you expand mobility options and you start declogging at your local level. It's not the entire answer. This is a menu of needs. It's like a sandwich. Every part of that sandwich is needed to get to the total before you take a bite of it. So we want to look at that local level. As you know, Madam Chair and members of the board, I don't need to tell you, we are the #1 state in the nation with the highest fatalities and injuries for bicyclists. This is a list we do not need to be on. This is a list we do not want to be on. The Miami-Dade TPO Governing Board has prioritized this. We've prioritized this at CEFTEC. My colleagues in Broward and Palm Beach are very dedicated, and we have formed a delegation at the regional level to reverse that trend. So we are committed to the first last mile network from a technology perspective, on-demand first last mile. That was a smart demonstration program from 2018 that was launched. On-demand, free pickup and drop-off within the first last mile of 3 major transit stations in 2018, trying to remove the single occupant vehicle from the equation. We know once we get a single occupant vehicle on the way to a park and ride lot, chances are we may lose them and they'll continue on their ride. So we want to pick them up. We want to take you where you're going, not just to transit, but all around. So when you get back, you can go to the supermarket, get what you need, and then get home in a multi-passenger vehicle. That was so successful that it is now across the entire Metro Rail system. We have this system in operation not just in the Metro Rail stations, but across our 34 municipalities. Our smart program has moved more than 11 million people since it's launched in circulator multi-passenger vehicles using on-demand technology. We have placed parking facilities in bedroom communities to launch transit services. So we want those technologies in place. We want a dedicated, protected network. And I can spend all day talking about that, but I will not. I just want to be repetitive about it because we will get off that list. And we always find that things that start south trickle up north. It's just the way it works. And we are a hotbed for these statistics, and we have to have that leadership in place. So a lot of those technologies want to see that. I would be dismissive if I didn't talk about urban air mobility. This is something you've heard about. It's not new. From the perspective of the TPO, MPOs, and I'd like to recognize the state for taking on a leadership role in preparing a statewide concept of operations in which we were heavily involved, Miami-Dade TPO. We would like to see the industry progress a bit more on that technology because we believe that there is a lot of useful integration in our network from a freight perspective, from delivery of freight to ultimately passenger use. The thing about that industry is that it can change overnight depending on the advancement of the electric battery. The entire industry is based on electric battery operated, electrical operated vehicles. The entire network, the entire framework is based on that. And it's very difficult for us to plan a network based on technology that could change overnight. So when you look at the impact of urban air mobility, you have to understand that we can model it today based on today's technology. But right now, Europe is leading in changing, really hypersonically changing the duration of that battery and how long it can run. And so overnight, that model can change from a local to regional to state to beyond. And there's a lot of socioeconomic impacts to that. And not only that, is our surface network ready to receive this type of technology if we start placing vertiports in areas that were not planned? How do we get there? How do we process that type of traffic? And what does that do to the surrounding area? So these are all things that MPOs are taking a deep dive. These are things that are in our long-range plan. Our board voted to support next generation advanced air mobility. We want also next generation transit. We want to look beyond heavy rail that we have today, elevated heavy rail, metro rail, and we want to look at next generation autonomous people mover, which is lighter and actually used in the same capacity as heavy rail today in Asia. So we want to look at that. That's been adopted in our plan. We want to look at next generation curb management to declog our roads at a local level and free flow in our critical economic impact downtowns. We want to look at next generation micromobility with a dedicated network, next generation powered for efficiencies in transportation from your cell phone. We want we want all of the different modes interoperability working right from your cell phone so that you don't really need a car, or you can bring a car to you, a multi-passenger vehicle in areas that you can't access transit. Beyond that, the text in orange are really your main regional projects that are advancing regionally and mega regionally. Brightline is already in Orlando, but now going to Tampa. We have our Golden Glades current construction moving forward. We have our South Dade Transitway, which when completed will be a 22-mile gold standard bus rapid transit, dedicated, protected, train-like service that will now connect the entire length of Miami-Dade County from the southern all the way to downtown and reduce congestion congestion for those in the south quite a bit for congestion relief. We have our tri-rail operations that we're looking at expanding at a local level. We have our northeast corridor, our north corridor, our east-west corridor, and then we have our transit-oriented community initiative. We are no longer focused on transit-oriented development. Our board adopted the transit-oriented community model in collaboration with Miami-Dade County Comprehensive Master Plan. We want to look at holistic communities at the local neighborhood level to reduce the need to have to enter into the network for basic needs. Everything should be served locally. The Strategic Miami Area Rapid Transit Program continues to evolve on many, many aspects. One thing, listen, transportation, you can get me going. It's the one thing, I'm really quite boring outside transportation, I promise. But you get me on transportation and you can keep me all day on any item, but the last thing that I will say is that the SMART plan transitioned to the SMART program officially when we started going into design, construction, operation, and maintenance on many of our programs. We do refer to it locally as the SMART region. 4 out of our 6 corridors connect regionally, 3 of them north, 1 of them south. And so I'm gonna turn the mic over back to you, Madam Chair, because you don't want to keep me on this topic. And it's my pleasure to be here and stay as long as you need me on any of these items. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate your presentation, and you're right, you are so well informed and enlightening to listen to. And from the Florida Keys, I have to say I'm a little jealous because, you know, we're struggling right now with our growing pains and how are we moving people and getting all the congestion off of US 1 highway, and how can we be more efficient? And we definitely look at you as our example of what maybe we can be doing better in our partnerships with the fact that so many of our workforce come from Florida City, and how do we take care of those people who are taking an hour and a half, 2 hours just to get to work. How are we taking better care of them and making that transportation more comfortable for them? So thank you for that. I also have the privilege of sitting on the Florida Transportation Strategic Plan 2055, and I'm just overwhelmed and excited with the next generation technology and air mobility and autonomous vehicles, and the ability for us to think out of the box of what will transportation look like in the next 20, 30 years. So I'm sure there's some people in this audience right now who might want to have a comment or a question. I'll start with Bean. The floor is yours.
Thanks. First of all, thanks for the presentation. I always enjoy listening to Eileen because you are very innovative on a lot of stuff. She had actually put together a trip to the Netherlands with Broward, Palm Beach, and Dade. That was an eye-opening experience for me, of seeing how other countries were dealing with traffic congestion. And it was like, I think for all of us that went there, we saw stuff that we had never seen, of how they had changed their landscape entirely, and how they had really kind of moved the car aside and really made the both bicycle, walking, other methods primary, and within 2 and 3 mile limits. I think Eileen has just finished putting together an entire package for how to change local downtown with the engineering as well. What kind of new engineering it would take to do that, and it's far-seeing. I think it's for all of us. We see congestion all over the place, and we're going to keep seeing that unless we change some things. I know Senator Geller and I have a thing going because he's not a big bicycler, and I am, but he's right in being worried about safety on it. And I think what we saw in the Netherlands was how to make it safe, and the kind of buffers that were needed to keep the car away from the bikes and those kind of things. And because they've done that, and it makes a huge difference. But on the board, with SEFTEC, a lot of the things that are now we're working with together, the interoperability of all 3 counties now I think that was going on for I don't know how long, trying to get it together, and that just happened. And I think a lot of it has to do with the MPO, all 3 MPOs working hard together. I think what we were looking at recently with regard to the commuter rail, you're seeing all 3 counties working hard on that. And a lot of it, appreciate all of TPO's work on that. But you're a driving force on this in the area, and appreciate it. And I think for this organization, for South Florida Regional Planning Council, there's such an overlap there. There's such an overlap, and there's probably not a more important overlap of trying to figure this out. What just went on what we've been talking about between garbage and US 27, we're talking about at SEFTEC, same kind of things. And having to figure those, and I see those overlaps on a regular basis. And how and where we work together is gonna be very important, and how we support each other is gonna make a big difference.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Did you want to close this out?
Thank you, Mayor, for your very kind words about me, and then also the summary that you've just given. And I just wanted to add for the field review that was conducted in the Netherlands. It was in collaboration with the Dutch Cycling Embassy. And the reason we did that is that the Dutch are the top 3 in the world for having developed an effective, safe bicycle pedestrian infrastructure that's integrated with traffic. And on our first day, in the first hour, sitting in that classroom, their engineers stood in front of us, and they were very clear when they said to us, we have perfected the design of bicycle infrastructure, safe bicycle infrastructure within a 2 or 3 mile radius. We do not profess beyond that. Bicycles are not the solution to traffic alone. They are not for long-term, regional. Every single Dutch citizen has more than one vehicle parked in their garage. The difference between them and us is that they don't need it for the short trips. And because of it, they have a different modality, a range of modality, and that allows people beyond the driving age population to also be effective participants in society, including high schoolers and teenagers nationally at the age of 11. They pass a certification across the country, and they are then allowed to ride their bikes on their own to school, but younger than that, they must be accompanied. Also, people at a certain age that no longer want to or can drive are active participants in society and have access within a 2 mile radius to a transit station and or all of their needs, and they're out there and they are using the network. And so we brought that model back here, and I want to be clear, our automobiles and our cars are the key component to all of our travel beyond the 2 miles. The only thing that I can say is it 100% the only choice that we can give our citizens within a 2 mile radius? And the answer to that is no. We saw how the Netherlands was able to address that. I will tell you there is a 9 mile radius on the horizon coming out of the Netherlands with the e-bikes. They're able to take that 2 mile radius model, that infrastructure, and grow it to a 9 mile capacity with an e-bike. We haven't seen it yet, but it's on the horizon. Right now, we just like to get the 2 miles.
I wonder what their heat index is. I'm gonna give this over
They
now
have
to-
snow index, and they ride in the snow.
snow.
And
Amazing.
in the rain and in the sun.
Amazing. I'm cognizant of time, so we're gonna finish with one last comment or question from Ms. Rodriguez, and then we'll move on.
Thank you. I think you brought forth a really important idea, and it's just that's the 2 mile or the 3 or the 9 mile with the e-bikes. But I'm thinking in Pembroke Pines, so super far out west on basically the Everglades in Broward County. And I wonder how some of the tactics that you've been using to incorporate more mass transit be adaptable to our area, because I think there's an issue not just on the lack of mass transportation, the real how often buses come, especially really, really far out west out on US 27, the reliability of them, but making sure that we're also incorporating the culture and the difference in culture that we might have seen in the Netherlands. I lived in France for a couple years and saw just how much that is ingrained in the culture, whether it's taking your kids on bike to school, doing all those errands on foot, like that kind of habit is not what we're used to here, even if my Publix is within a mile and a half, I much rather drive because I don't have the capability to get on a short bus distance, even if that's what I would want to do. Or a bus shelter to sit in the case that I have to wait for the rain, things like that. So what are you working on here on more west, outside of the coastal areas that may be adaptable as well for our area?
So I feel like what you've just pointed out is that we have an urban built structure. We have it. It was built over time. These type of considerations were probably not present at the time that several of these communities were envisioned. But I will tell you that at TPO, we have a clear understanding that not just here in our region, but nationally, with very few exceptions, what is missing in our network is a pedestrian network. We have roadways at the local level, we have arterials at the regional, and we have highways. We have many, many roadways. And at some point, back in the 1950s, when design standards were being established, there was a thought that if you built a roadway, then naturally a pedestrian would follow that same trajectory, and therefore you would build a sidewalk for miles and miles and miles next to a 6-lane highway because you're building a roadway, so naturally pedestrians would be there. Well, we've learned that it's failed, and we've spent billions of dollars on sidewalks in our core designs across the nation that no one is using. So I understand and I hear you loud and clear. For you to be able to walk for your local 2-mile radius needs, your quote-unquote pedestrian network that's available is not feasible to you. You're not going to walk with your children on a 4-foot sidewalk next to a 6-lane highway. So probably the real problem we have, and why we're number one in the nation with the highest fatalities for cyclists, and we're not far behind on pedestrians, I'm very sorry to tell you, we're in the top 3, is because we don't have the right problem statement yet. We're trying to retrofit and reverse engineer an existing urban structure without the real problem statement in front of us. And I believe the real problem statement is we do not have a pedestrian network. I would like to say publicly for the first time, I will put on a different hat here. Could there be a pilot where we would turn over the sidewalks to bicycles immediately and build a pedestrian network that works for people? Would that solve our cycling fatalities with a sudden dedicated protected network that used to be a sidewalk that no pedestrians were using, while also providing a dedicated protected network where people walk? And we've all seen those graveled out trails in ways that don't follow your crosswalk and sidewalks. That's the real pedestrian network. And then we have to start pushing transit-oriented communities across the region so that when you're developing communities, you have pedestrian networks that are feasible, and you have dedicated bicycle networks that are dedicated, protected infrastructure, so you can get around. And absent that, you're going to have to get behind a car to do this. Now, your access to transit, which was your first concern, until it gets built to your area, and I know Greg is doing a great job with the Primo plan working on this, the way that you can address that is to try to increase more on-demand mobility to get you to and from those transit stations that have increased frequency during your peak hour and are more reliable and that will serve you during your congestion period, as opposed to getting on a bus that's traveling in the same congestion to get you where you need to go. So you may want to look at or explore, and Greg has done a great job doing this, how you can institute some of these on-demand first, last mile, at first your local neighborhood level, and then your transit level to get you there. And you can look at our model. It's highly successful. It's growing exponentially. It's called Metro Connect, and we are taking lots of trips off the road. So I would look at that for short term. For long term, I would look at how that development is occurring and work with Greg and the county on what does a pedestrian network really look like.
Yeah, and I'm thinking we've built out obviously HOA areas in which you really do only have access for your car all the way around to the main gate, and it's safety or, whatever the reasoning for that was, but there is no pedestrian access to a lot of kind of the backyard of a home, and it would be so much easier for me to go through the shrubbery to go to Sedanos and come back than it would be for me to grab my car and go all the way around. So that's something that comes up as an example that's very visible in our area. We don't have those pedestrian pathways.
Pedestrian network, missing in action.
All right, this could be a discussion item, I think, for another whole seminar that we do. I just want to thank you so much for being here and for sharing your brain width with us and your energy and your commitment to transportation. So thank you for that. So at all of our meetings, we do open up for public comments. So if there's anyone in the audience or on Zoom that would like to give us your public comment, the floor is now open to you. Do we have anyone on Zoom? Do we have anyone here in the audience? Hearing none, we'll close public comment. And we will move on to our next item, which, yes?
I have to find this pedestrian network back to the train station.
Okay, thank you for
So-
being here, and same with Commissioner Horland, who also had to leave. So next up, we will do our executive director's report.
Madam Chair, I can email everyone my report.
Okay,
I don't have much to add.
all right, next we'll do Sam with our
Thank you.
legal counsel report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll rest on the memorandum in the backup regarding the current RLF program articulated by Mr. Tart, which I appreciate. There's no need to mention any further the Dawson matter, which is articulated further in that document. We'll brief with you further as things progress. There's no other new litigation to report or any other matter that would impact the council's life and existence. So thank you for listening.
That's good news.
It is very good news, and although I'm not a player in this discussion, as an e-bike rider, I welcome listening to the conversation this morning very much.
Yes.
Extremely.
Thank you for
Thank you.
that. We will now open it up to any council members' report. Hearing none, we will close and move on to our ex officio report. And I want to thank Dat Nguyen for being here in person this morning. We always see you in Zoom world, and it's so nice to see you here in person. Do you have an update for us this morning?
I have no update, thank you. But it's a pleasure. Welcome to Miami-Dade County. I hope to make it up there in Hollywood. So I will try to be present. Well, I am present virtually, but be present in person. Thank
Well,
you.
we always appreciate your input and your expertise. Anyone on Zoom, ex officiato, who would like to give a report? Do we have anyone from South Florida Water Management District or the Florida Department of Environmental Protection or FDOT District 4?
Good afternoon, Armando with South Florida Water Management District. Just one quick update. We have stopped our ag season drawdown in the south, and we'll be moving those canals to high ranges. So that's in the Miami-Dade County ag area. Just wanted to give that update for folks that follow our water operations. That's all. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for that update. Anyone else? Okay, hearing none. I believe that all announcements and attachments are in your backup. And with that, we will adjourn this meeting. Thank you all so much, and safe travels back home, and hydrate.
All right.